Judas, huh? Okay, so there are a lot of people who are confused because there are some weird people out there who think that Judas went to heaven because he simply did what God wanted him to do. But while God used him to accomplish his means, that doesn't mean he automatically gets a ticket into heaven. God uses wicked people all the time to accomplish that which he wants. And I think the confusion comes because we just go on with the assumption that Judas was wicked because those of us who study the scriptures see how obvious it is. So let me spell it out for you, and maybe it'll be obvious to you as well. I'm going to go through every pertinent passage. So we come to Luke 6:16, where it identifies Judas Iscariot as one who became a traitor. Remember, this was written after everything. So if he had been saved, don't you think they would have told us? But let's keep going. John 6:70 through 71, Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you, the 12? And yet one of you is a devil." He spoke of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, for he, one of the 12, was going to betray him. Now, inevitably, someone's going to point out that Jesus told Peter to get behind me, Satan, and Peter betrayed Jesus too. Yeah, but the difference is that Peter stuck around to be forgiven. Judas didn't. And also, throughout Scripture, Peter's never described as a wicked person, but we have that description for Judas. So let's keep going. John 12:5 through 6. Why was this anointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? Then John tells us he said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. John's telling us, and John was the one who outlived all the apostles. This would have been a perfect place for him to say, and yet he was saved later, or something like that. Matthew 26:14 through 16. Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What would you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him. So we see that he's a greedy man. He helps himself from the money bag, and he betrays Jesus for money. John 13:27 says, "Then after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, 'What you are going to do, do quickly.'" Now, I really don't know how you can say that he became a believer or was saved or forgiven if Satan is literally entering into him. There's only two people listed in the Bible where Satan himself enters them, and that is Judas and the Antichrist himself. Some people will blame the devil here, but he had to have been in a state where the devil could enter him. So in John 17:12, Jesus is praying to the Father, and he says, "While I was with them, I kept them in your name, which you have given me. I have guarded them, and not one of them has been lost, except the son of destruction, that the scriptures might be fulfilled." There are only two people in the entire Bible who are called the son of destruction, Judas and the Antichrist, which means Judas is on the same level as the Antichrist. Both were inhabited directly by the devil. Are we going to say the Antichrist is going to heaven too? But if you want condemnation directly from Jesus, here it is. Matthew 26:24 through 25. "The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." Why? If he's going to heaven, wouldn't it be great? He's not going to heaven. Judas, who would betray him, answered, "Is it I, Rabbi?" He said to him, "You have said so." Now, inevitably, someone's going to bring up Matthew 27:4 through 5 and say, "Look, he repented, he repented." No, let's read it carefully. Judas came to them and said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." They said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed and went and hanged himself. So he was remorseful about betraying someone innocent, but that does not mean that he was dependent on God for the forgiveness of his sins. He never repented of who he was as a wicked person. He just knew he had gone too far. Peter stuck around and declared his love for the Lord 3 times. Judas never was able to do that because he hanged himself before that he could get there. And then in the book of Acts, which was written by Luke after interviewing a bunch of people, he makes it very clear that Judas ended his life in wickedness. Acts 1:18 says, "Now this man acquired a field with the reward of his wickedness. Falling headlong, he burst open in the middle and all his bowels gushed out." So after he hung himself, his body rotted and it fell down and blah, everything. That was showing the dishonor of his death, that he was ultimately dishonored for betraying God himself. So putting it all together, there's no indication whatsoever that Judas went to heaven. In fact, quite the opposite. It's a deduction based off of what's stated about him. They had ample opportunity to say, oh, by the way, Judas was saved because he did what God wanted him to do. No, God used what he wanted to do to accomplish what God wanted to do. Anything else is just wishful thinking.